From our free daily newsletter, the latest from podnews.net with Spots Now. Spotify has adopted the Alliance for Podcast Measurement's definition of a play in their metrics, announced yesterday as part of a wider set of new data and charts within the creator's dashboard. Spotify first introduced a play in May 2025, but didn't explain how they were calculated. But as of today, you have officially listened to this podcast when you get to this bit, because as of today, a play is now defined as 30 seconds of content played once per user per session. Spotify claim that their data helps inform AMP's definition. The technical details of that have yet to be published. It's not the same as what the IAB consider a download. It's not the same as what Apple Podcasts consider a play. And it's not the same, or maybe it is, of what YouTube considers a view. YouTube doesn't publicly define what a view is, but most people think it's a minimum of 30 seconds played if the video is longer than that. Will everybody else agree with what a definition of a play is? When US radio switched from a 5-minute to a 3-minute threshold last year, that added another 23% to the numbers. We're doing some data work to discover what it might mean for podcasting too. In other news, Stampede Social has unveiled a set of new tools for podcasters who use Instagram. You can set the tool to instantly send your latest episode, complete with episode artwork, to anyone who DMs a keyword to you, making it much easier to convert an Insta reader to a podcast listener. The tool can be used for advertiser feedback and works with your existing RSS feed. Back in May last year, Spotify came under fire for listing spam podcasts that operated as links to websites for illegal drugs. After a CNN story, Spotify said that they'd removed them, but that kicked off an investigation from US Senator Maggie Hassan, which was released yesterday. The full investigation suggests that Spotify removed 3,500 accounts in 2025 and over 57,000 different episodes, but didn't report a single account to law enforcement. Spotify doesn't track any use of links in episode descriptions either, we learn, and some shows had been on the platform for 4 years. iHeartRadio, Amazon Music and Acast's Podchaser also had this kind of spam in their directory in the committee's report. JellyPod, an AI-generated podcast tool, is highlighted as one of the tools used to publish this content. Now, we've covered efforts to remove spam shows like this in the past. In our opinion, this isn't a Spotify problem. It's an industry-wide issue that we should be working together to combat. It shouldn't be hard to automatically share potentially problematic feeds across the industry and to highlight podcast hosting companies who fail to adequately moderate their users' content. And our short podcasts a growing trend. In Spain, Jose A. Gallardo has crunched the numbers to learn that the most popular podcasts in Spain are around an hour long. For a podcast to succeed, it doesn't need to be short, Jose says. The data also reveals that the 3 main platforms have little overlap. Only 36 shows appear across Apple, Evox and Spotify rankings, and almost 20% of shows on Spotify are there exclusively with no open RSS feed. In our tips and tricks section today, if all the talks of plays, downloads and listens is hurting your head, we'd recommend our article How to Understand Podcast Stats, which we've just updated to include the latest Spotify data as well as video. And in podcast news,
what is more annoying, the ad you can skip or the ad you can't skip?
In the Pod News Weekly Review this week, most podcast listeners skip the ads. We speak to Cliff Mark from YouGov about what their data tells us. Plus,
podcast has allowed freedom of different types of formats and for niche things and for true crime and some of these other things. But on news and information and entertainment, I'm not sure it's entirely different than what we were doing before. It's just coming through a different mechanism.
We speak with David Locke from the Locked On Podcast Network, looking at 10 years of running a bunch of successful sports shows. And what is a play? As Spotify aligns with the new Alliance for Podcast Measurement, is the podcast industry beginning to split apart? You can find the Pod News Weekly Review wherever you found this show. And a high-octane audio epic, 15 years in the making, Oblivion Girl, goes live this Sunday. It's an action-adventure comedy. Started life as a novel 15 years ago, but over the last 18 months has been produced as a podcast with 40 songs and more than 20 talented voice actors. The podcast features Essa, a fierce, unfiltered and borderline mythic bounty hunter. And this podcast is sponsored by Spots Now. Spots Now is the AI operating system for podcast advertising. What are you doing next Thursday, June the 18th? Why not join the upcoming webinar to learn how podcast networks can use AI to maximize their sales output using Claude, agents and ChatGPT. It's free to book at spotsnow.io/webinar. or just use the link for Spots Now in our show notes. And that's the latest from our newsletter. To read all the stories and subscribe for free, we're at podnews.net.